Well, well, look, by now you've realized that I'm a doll again. I got stuck in a gizmo doll like last year or whatever, and now I'm this. I don't want to talk about it, but all I'll say is that it was a dumb idea to answer dares from a five-year-old. Anyway, there's a new season of Chucky, the TV show, coming really soon, so I thought that it was probably a very opportune time to talk about some ripoffs of the Child's Play series, which I suppose this video is now one of. Number 10. Back in 1995, there was The Fear, which starts off with people in wood masks chanting diametric over and over again. Diametric. And wait, hold up. Wes Craven? Richard here is working on his thesis and decides to do a weekend-long study on fear and puts up these flyers, and what the hell? Why would he space it like that? What's SCAR SU? Come on, man. I'm also questioning the sense of looking out for a campus rapist and looking for information on him and making the number to call 333-RAPE. A group of them all head up to the woods, and they bring Troy's older foster sister here, played by Ann Turkle, and he's a college kid, and she's clearly much older. In fact, Turkle was just shy of 50 here. At the cabin, they find this big wooden mannequin that's named Morty, and they decide to use him in their project, and each of the subjects then tell it their greatest fears.
So what scares you, Leslie?
I don't want to get old.
Well, you're in your late 40s and looking like that, smoking hot. So maybe don't worry. Morty starts showing up in odd places, including a hot tub. And there's also Uncle Pete here.
Who, me?
No, not you. A different Uncle Pete. And he's played by Vince Edwards from Ben Casey, who did a run of low-budget horror in the early 90s, and this was his final film before his death 1 year later. They end up in Santa's Village, an actual sort of theme park in California that was also the location for the film Sleigh Bells about 23 years later. Everyone starts to unwind and ulterior motives start to be revealed, and Morty starts making their fears come true, like aging, and we don't see him actually moving around on his own until the 1 hour and 15-minute mark, and he's definitely an animated living doll, but distinct from Chucky in that he's more psychological and supernatural. He doesn't speak, and it's kinda hilarious because whenever he moves, they add in this creaking wood sound effect. But you can clearly see his rubber suit fold and bend, which is pretty great. Like he's clearly wearing a type of shirt, and it's obviously fabric around his midsection. It basically ends on a cliffhanger, and I guess did well enough because 4 years later there was a follow-up with The Fear Halloween Night, also called Fear Resurrection. And this one was directed by a guy named Chris Angel, but don't worry because your mind will remain unfreaked. It has a killer loose in the woods and his son who sees him kill his mom 20 years ago, and then there's another bunch of college-looking kids heading up to the woods, including this guy, and how is this not Eric Balfour? Mrs. Voorhees is here, and she still loves sweaters. And it's not a cabin, but a big mansion, and of course, Morty's here, although he's taken on a new look. Again, they're going to tell him their greatest fears, and it appears as if he has a different backstory now, so it's not clear if this is supposed to be the same one. Like the first movie, he doesn't start to get up and walk around until about an hour in, but now, to be more Chucky-like, I suppose, he talks. And he can also now morph into a tree. He sort of takes on the identity of the killer dad, which, you know, serial killer spirit within an animated doll. Yeah, that's what we're looking at here, and it's pretty much just the first movie again, but both of these are passable, but not really all that great, to be honest. But with their Chucky similarities, although not blatant, they're there. Number 9. How about Demon Dolls from 1993? It's from Todd Jason Cook, director of the notorious Evil Knight, and from minute 1, it's pretty apparent the budget level that we're looking at. Also from the beginning, it's obvious what it's inspired from as a man reads an incantation that imbues life into a doll. It works, and look at this intricate effects work. I have been studying this movie, and I just can't figure out how they did this. Not only can it talk, but it can move and also animate whatever it wants and appear as other people. Soon, a possessed Scott is showing up in clown makeup to attack, and oh boy, is it magical. I guess I should also mention that Scott here is played by Cook himself, and his wife in the movie is his real-life wife. And the killing starts, including this sort of low-rent version of that infamous Killer Clowns bit. Since the doll can possess people, it's not actively involved in the actual killings, and at times it feels just like a regular slasher flick, but it's also pretty surreal, with Scott getting trapped in TVs and such, and it's kind of hilarious. If you know the kind of backyard horror that I get a kick out of, you'll probably guess that this is up my alley, and I had some fun with this. It's clearly just some people making a super low budget flick in their house with their friends and family, but it's extremely entertaining. Like after a tender moment between the couple, the dolls cry. How do I not have fun with that? It does some cool stuff, and outside of the initial setup, it's not overly Chucky inspired, although the influence is clearly there. But if you like $5 horror, this is a pretty fun example of it. Number 8. Cook also made a movie in 1995 called The Dummy about a ventriloquist dummy, but instead we're checking out a different film with the same concept called The Dummy from 2000. Paul here moves into a house and is visited by Donna, and she's played by Irina Björklund, who was a hugely famous Finnish actress who has won many awards back there and has also shown up in a smattering of American films, but this was her US debut, and she did it for free in order to appear in the United States market. Paul here is a ventriloquist, and his dummy's name is Tommy, and Paul is played by Keith Singleton, who also wrote, directed, and produced the film. Tommy talks to Paul and people start getting killed, including a critic, and he calls a psychiatrist who answers his phone like this.
Psychiatry, Dr. Myers.
Because how else would you, the audience, know what kind of a doctor that he was? They do the whole, is the dummy alive or is Paul just insane, and talking through it thing for a while, and it seems like there was once fire, but of course, considering that it's on this list, it's eventually revealed that the doll is indeed alive. He moves on his own and wisecracks, and I don't know, it's fine, I guess, but it's definitely something that you've seen before and done with more style. Like this is someone making the movie Magic, but with a much smaller budget and without Anthony Hopkins and without any of the subtlety. Number 7. Next up, we're headed over to India for ZAPATLELA from 1993. And as you're about to find out, for some reason, Bollywood was really in love with Child's Play, and this movie kicks that off for us. There's this badass gangster, Tatya Vishnu, who looks like a Muppet, and he's involved with voodoo. And when he's killed by a police officer, he manages to transfer his soul into a nearby doll. Yeah, this is just Child's Play, make no mistakes. This isn't a movie that's a little inspired, it's pretty much a direct remake of it, except without a little boy, and instead an adult who's a ventriloquist with the weirdest dummy I've ever seen. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Oh, and musical numbers, of course. He gets gifted the haunted doll, who soon reveals his true identity, and he starts to kill people, which Lakshya gets blamed for, while Tatya goes to the Dr. Death character to find out how to get out of the doll body. If you guessed that he'd need to transfer into the first person he'd hold his true identity to, congratulations, you understand the theme here. Even if you don't understand Marathi, which I do not. And this wasn't subtitled, but who needs them? I knew exactly what was going on the entire time because I've seen Child's Play. It's less a horror film and more a goofy comedy than the original, of course, as is pretty evident from the look of the doll. And weirdly, 20 years later, in 2013, there was a sequel, of course, called ZAPATLELA 2, which involves Tatya being revived by Baba, and it's billed as the first Indian film to be completely in 3D. It breaks off on its own instead of simply copying any American version, and it's just as silly as the first, and he's still trying to transfer his soul, and yeah, they're entertaining and all, but as you're gonna see, are hardly the end of the Indian Chucky knockoffs. Number 6. We're staying in India now, and this is where things get kinda weird, because this is 2001's Amobama. And here's the deal, ZAPATLELA was such a huge success in portions of India, portions that speak Marathi, which is a different language than Hindi. There's 3 prominent languages there, with Hindi being the most used, Bengali the second most, and Marathi the third. Well, since ZAPATLELA was in that language, they decided to release it in the Mumbai area, dubbed into Hindi. And that was popular enough that it led to this, a straight-up remake in Hindi. We have our villainous gangster here named Gangaram, and when I say that this is a remake, I mean that it's virtually shot for shot. So again, you don't have to speak the language to know the story. Gangaram gets shot, so does the chant, and possesses the doll, which is the exact same one as in ZAPATLELA, the same silly doll. So really, you're looking at the same exact film, again, only with an upgraded budget. And you might say, are there upgraded musical numbers? Well, of course there's upgraded musical numbers. And this one actually has one that includes the ventriloquist dummy. And oh, you know how occasionally the US will have some crap like shoving a white guy into a movie and having him play a ridiculous stereotype of an Indian man? Well, this movie is like, oh yeah, well, this is what Americans are like.
We want cola. Cola kavali. Yeah. Cola na? Yeah. Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola. This is police station, yeah? Edana cold drink shop ke ladgande. We want Constable Cola.
They even white-faced them up. This one sort of takes on a more serious slant, but only slightly, and since it's more mainstream Bollywood, the songs are more polished, even if that ridiculous doll puppet isn't. The plus side is that this one seems to feature more of the doll than ZAPATLELA did, and there's some attempt to make it more villainous and play up the horror elements a little bit, but it's definitely a bit pointless to watch this immediately after the other one, even if it is slightly more professionally made. Number 5. Let's head back to the good old US for 1996's Pinocchio's Revenge from Kevin S. Tenney. Now I have some high hopes here because this is the guy who gave us Night of the Demons, and the creature effects are by Gabe Bartalos, and starts with a man caught burying a body and a wooden doll. The man blamed for the crimes may not have done it though, and the puppet makes its way to his lawyer's office. Meanwhile, little Zoe is having trouble in school, and eventually Gallo is executed for the killings. Jennifer can't let the case go though and takes the puppet home with her, and of course Zoe takes to it, and soon enough it seems like it's up and moving around on its own, and of course the little girl gets blamed for its actions. It gets revenge by getting a little girl hit by a bus and seems to talk to her in a vaguely Butters-esque voice.
Sure, you know I'll never leave you, but we can't be too sure about Mom, not as long as David's around.
They play up the psychological aspect of it all, like is it actually the little girl, or is the doll really alive? And soon enough, things are starting to escalate. And here's the thing here. This movie knows that you've seen Child's Play. You've got the killer who's been executed. You've got the doll moving onto a new home and becoming the best friend of a child of a single parent. And it eventually moves around, but only for the little girl. And yeah, you've seen Child's Play. And since you're expecting that, this movie actually plays with that a little bit. And it's a pretty fun little thriller. They keep on throwing out the question of whether the doll is alive or if it's just Zoe right up until the finale, and the answer is actually a little surprising even, and I had fun with this one. I liked it. Number 4. Now let's jump ahead to 2008 for TRILOQUIST, which starts with a female ventriloquist and her disturbing looking dummy, and she overdoses. It seems like he's alive though and talks to her kids, who get sent to a foster home. It then jumps to the kids being adults, reunited with the dummy, and he gets revenge on the people who wronged them, including killing a little kid. Norbert gets pegged for the killing, so Angelina and Dummy decide to break him out, and yeah, a lot has happened in the first 10 minutes or so of this movie. Angelina is a really terrible person, but I guess she's our main character, so I think we're supposed to be on her side. But she's a murderous, racist sociopath, so is this like Rob Zombie's Chucky or something? Well, actually, this one was written and directed by Mark Jones, who also wrote and directed the original Leprechaun, but that film's charm and fun characters are not really present here. It's edited really odd.
Freeze! I'm telling you right now, you better freeze! 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 How'd you do that?
We can do magic.
Like, I don't know what was supposed to be happening there. And just remember, this came out in 2008. It was hot on the heels of Rob Zombie's Halloween, and this type of edgelord horror was a thing. So sure, throw in some incest. The dummy dreaming of nude girls dancing on him, and yeah, it is pretty hard to get through. There's definitely Child's Play stuff happening here, what with the wisecracking living doll, but there's more happening than that, so it is its own thing. But I kind of hate that thing. Number 3. Okay, it's time to head back overseas for 2005's Mantra with yet another Indian interpretation, this one in Bengali. Mantra starts with voodoo and goofy faces, lots of goofy faces. I guess this dude is our Charles Lee Ray, and he's just really unhinged. And it follows the formula with the cop showing up to confront him in a toy store and the body transfer, which uses a chant that sounds a lot like Mancha Mookie? We then have a kid, because this one is going for the more standard remake scenario instead of just using the basic concept, and it's essentially scene for scene as the single mom buys her son the killer doll for his birthday, and look at this thing. This is terrifying. And this actually maintains not only the story elements of the original, but the feel as well, getting rid of the more comedic elements of the other Indian versions, as well as the slant that the regular Chucky films had taken on in this same time frame. And you will know that it's serious, because at a half hour in, there's nary a song or dance to be seen. And again, I'm not joking, this is practically shot for shot, just much cheaper. Like, check out this version of the Eddie character's death. And the doll's reveal is just glorious. And they take the interesting tactic of splicing the human actor in there to represent his actions. And they also add in this shimmering mirror effect when he's around. That it's just a cool little detail. And yeah, there is one musical number in the film, but it's not the actors performing. It's just like a random music video tossed in there. It breaks pretty strongly from the source material near the end though, since it has our villain regain his human form, only when he does, he moves like a jerky doll. But then it's right back to standard stuff, including the electrocution of the doctor and everything. So this is pretty much everything that you want a foreign ripoff of a horror classic to be. It's faithful enough, and yet hilarious with the way that it cuts the corners to keep costs down. And again, even though I don't speak the language, it's 100% not necessary here if you've seen Child's Play. So just sit back and ignore the words and enjoy the weird ride. Number 2. Okay, I promise our last trip to India is the notorious 1996 film Papa GUDIA, which translates to Sinful Doll and starts with this screen, which I will read. The story idea of the film is to create positive feeling in children, which will make them careful against similar situations in future, and also to warn them against blind faith or surrender to alien things, be it a doll or computer toys, robots, etc. So there you go. In this one, which by the way, I was able to find subtitles for, which helped a bit, but in this one, they flesh out the killer character quite a bit more before getting right to it. This guy abducts children to use for black magic, and pretty soon, the police are after him, mainly because he's stealing little kids straight off the stage at a talent show. The now standard toy store face-off occurs and swap. And how's the doll, you might ask? Well, it's this thing. Johnny. Okay, it's been almost 20 minutes now. Surely there must be, oh yes, there we are, a musical number. You see, in this version, instead of Andy and his single mom, we have this little boy and his pop star sister. They buy the doll, of course, and it's pretty much switches to straight up Child's Play remake. Again, almost a scene for scene replication. And when you can't afford to toss a babysitter out a window, you do this. Which is amazing, and I would like to see again. We then get the Chris Sarandon character, and I am not making this up. This is the way that they introduce him. And oh my god, I love this. And then every time, and I mean every time they show the doll, they make this sound effect. And interspersed with the Child's Play scene, there's added love interest stuff going on, and more musical numbers, here in the form of Sis's music videos. And here's something you probably didn't know about Bollywood films. They run considerably longer than American films. This one is 2 hours and 10 minutes long. Compare that to Child's Play at 1 hour and 27 minutes. You need all that extra time for choreographed dance routines, I guess. So the big moment of discovering the lack of batteries happens at the 1 hour and 26 minute mark here, exactly 1 minute behind the running time of the original. They straight up cheat here, as this is clearly a kid in a wig, and I know that they did that in Child's Play as well, but not this blatantly. And again, you're just watching a remake here. This is pretty much the original with some silly extras added in. And they are silly, but they're fun. They do the whole car confrontation, which they do pretty well considering the budget. And then the Dr. Death scene is here. But then, for some reason, Johnny becomes human again. For no reason. He just does. Oh, but before he does, he's the doll. And it's very, very clearly just a kid in a costume and wig. that looks nothing like the doll. How does it end? With this astounding floating head special effect. And this transparent cop. What is even happening here? And then lots of optical stuff. Just lots and lots of it. Number 1. And okay, our number 1 movie here is, of course, 1991's Dolly, Dearest. Instead of voodoo, we have a spirit released from a Mayan tomb, and Tasha Yar and her family are headed to Mexico, where Wade here is going to help design a new doll. It seems he was lured there under false pretenses though, and the factory is a dive that just so happens to be by that cursed tomb. There's already a bunch of dolls here, and they take one with them, and Zed is here too, and weird stuff starts to happen as little Jessica shows an aversion to crosses, and then Dolly is up and walking around on her own. Child's Play comparisons start right away since the first victim is the babysitter, and then little Jimmy teams up with Carl to check out the crypt. So, here's a little something I noticed. I'm guessing that some of Jimmy's lines needed redubbed, but by the time they went to do the audio, his voice must have changed since he's right about that age. So, whenever they have some lines of his that are ADR, it appears as if they had to pitch it up a bit in order to make him sound young again.
Hi, you're the archaeologist from the university? Hi, I'm Jimmy Wade. Korean. I've done it before, but it's kind of dark in there, if you know what I mean.
So, who's buried in there? A Maya king? He must be a short guy. This is like King Tut, right? You coming?
We finally start to get some good shots of Dolly running around, and this is clearly a lower budget than they had for Chucky, so don't expect that level of technical wizardry, but she looks cool. In fact, at times, she's played by a little person in a suit, and that person is Ed Gale, who also played Chucky at times. She wisecracks and is apparently one of the Sanzia, an ancient evil that has returned. There's some pretty fun visual stuff. And Dolly's the attempt of the Sanzia to create a devil child. And you know, another little tidbit here is that it apparently had been released in some foreign markets as Child's Play 4, or at least was promoted as that before switching it. And it's clearly an effort to cash in on Chucky's popularity and MO, but it does have enough of its own vibe happening that it doesn't feel like a straight up ripoff. Like Chucky though, eventually Dolly takes on a more human-looking form, and I guess one thing to note here is that this film did the whole multiple doll thing before Chucky did, and it turns out that the whole warehouse is full of them. But, of course, due to budget and them probably only having one actual doll puppet, you only see one at a time. But this is pretty fun and an enjoyable time. So there you have it, 10 movies that either directly rip off Child's Play or are just inspired by it in one way or another. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed these. I know I actually did. There was quite a few in here that I actually had a blast with. I really had fun watching the Bollywood ones. They were pretty damn enjoyable, and Demon Dolls was surprisingly a lot of fun for being a backyard cinema. And Dolly Dearest isn't great, but I have a bit of nostalgia for it. It's a special place in my heart for that one. But yeah, let me know which of these you've enjoyed and which you've seen. If you've happened to have seen the Indian versions like Papa GUDIA, tell me down below in the comments, or if you would like to see them, feel free. They are all completely free on YouTube. It's exactly where I found all of them. But yeah, so they're pretty easy to find. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of these. If you liked the video, hit like, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. If you want to go to my Patreon page and help support me to get me out of this damn doll, you could maybe post some of the chants to get me out of here. I tried doing the Ade Due Dambala, does not work. I gotta figure this out now. If somebody happens to have the Heart of Dambala that they want to mail me, that'd be certainly appreciated. But yeah, I want to thank my patrons for helping to support this channel, and I want to thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you next week, hopefully in human form.